Hey everyone, it's Sarah, the elder millennial.
And this is Bill, the infant boomer. Welcome to Strengths on Fire, the podcast for strengths enthusiasts who want to have fun while leveling up.
Get ready for a mix of powerful insights, unexpected stories, and plenty of laughs along the way. Hey Bill, you want to light these strengths on fire?
Sarah, let's light it up!
All right, welcome back, friends, family, clients, coaches, acquaintances. Sarah Collins here with Mr. William, better known as Bill Dipple. Bill, how you doing today?
I was so excited for the last episode. Now I'm scared. Now I'm petrified.
My gosh, it's
No, I'm not. I am still absolutely excited that I get to get coached today.
Yes, I am coaching Bill Dipple. Ladies and gentlemen.
I'm ready.
Okay, but before we get started,
Yeah.
I was thinking about this. Do you read books?
Often. And I'm starting to listen to them a little more, right? A little
Yes.
audible.
Which
right?
do you consider listening still reading?
Wow. Are we going to get in trouble? Are we going to get some people?
We're just dividing people out here.
I
Cold
mean-
bratwurst, pickle relish,
Let's
listening is reading. What are we doing?
Let's just talk politics and religion too. And let's just get it out. Right. I mean, I do, because I do get a lot of information when I'm listening to Audible. There are now, and I'll also say, my wife and I listen very differently. My wife listens to Audible all the time.
Yeah.
But she listens to it on 2.5, right?
Wow, that is fast.
And I listen on 1. And if I missed something, I back it up.
Whoa.
Because I am not, right? For me, if I missed something, I think I'm going to miss the next 3 things because they all link, right? Connectedness. I'm a big connectedness guy.
Yes. And that learner in you, right?
Yeah,
Just got to get in there.
So I feel that, right? I start to feel that's where I need to do that. So when my wife amps it up, if we're driving somewhere, right? I'm like, oh, it's hard, right?
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. But so I do, and then I read.
Are you listening to professional development books? Are we listening to fiction, nonfiction? Like, give me a little something.
You are definitely trying to get me in trouble today.
I really am not.
No, but you don't even know this is a hot button item for me.
I guess
right?
not.
So,
oh my gosh. I have stepped in it, ladies and gentlemen, and I
love it.
didn't even know. Welcome to my life.
If I can have somebody step in it for me, it's always going to be Sarah. It's going to be good. So here is the debate again. I will read professional, right, or listen to podcasts around strengths, or, obviously we read the Gallup books, right?
We're supposed to read those? If anyone's going to get you off the hook, it's me, okay? I wanted to just come on here and talk about the books I'm reading. I just started it by asking you. I didn't mean to jump into a pool.
Well, where I'm going with this, that's the scary part. We just did a Charlotte Blair event, another coach that we work with. Right. And Oscar was on, Tremboli, I believe. He wrote the book Listen. And I started reading it, and then I just downloaded it and listened to it because I just wanted to do it while I was moving and doing things.
It seems appropriate to listen to a book called Listen.
Yeah. And his voice is very tranquil. So it really helped me listen. So that I will do that, but I would say 90% of what I read, and this is a real sticky point for my wife, is fiction. And it's fun. It's not science fiction per se. It's not crazy fiction. There isn't a genre like I have to read Game of Thrones or I have, for me, it's a super good story that takes me away from what I'm doing every day. Right. Absolutely.
Okay. I love this. I read a lot of professional development books too. And I have to listen to those I read a lot of times at bedtime, so I can't stay awake, like, to save my life. And so to read something, no. So I have to listen to it. But in the last year, I really started reading and listening to way more fiction books. I've always loved reading, and I've just really dove in deep. And I've seen some stuff online going around of like, I was trying to work on myself and listening to all of these nonfiction books. And then I started listening to wonderful fiction books. And that actually makes me feel more alive and happy than the self-help books. And I think there's something to that. I think it is a wonderful escape to get into a good fiction book, to go to a different world.
I couldn't, and for me, my wife is like, what? And she's asking a good question. I'm not saying it isn't the correct question to ask me. She's asking, why are you wasting your time? Why aren't you learning something while you're reading? Right. Which is a fair comment, because I could be, I could be picking up something extra while I'm doing it. I have a mentor of mine that I deal with all the time. He should be a professional bike rider. He is not, but he's got, I don't know, 0.5% body fat. And he's, we meet frequently at a tea shop in town, and the girls behind the tea shop, when he's not around, are like, is the movie star coming in today? I mean, he's pretty and he's very professional. He's always, he's a dentist by trade, and he coaches other dentists on how to be super successful. He's amazing. Right. And, he told me once, when I'm riding to a bike event, I'm riding to a mountain biking event, or and I'm going to do biking, I always listen to a podcast about biking, because I'll pick something up. And for me, I'm like, oh God, if if I put my bike on my truck and I want to drive somewhere, I'm listening to music, like driving me, I don't want to think about the ride at all. Right. I want to just dive into it and get into it. It's just a very different way of looking at it. And, I completely respect my wife's. I'm listening to podcasts all day, and she'll send me links to things. Hey, you need to hear this about, that at Gallup, or that was said here, or that happened there. And hey, check that out. This is really relative. So I love that. I still get the information side, but for me, I got to unplug.
Yeah. Well, and I would be curious. This is not part of the coaching that we're going to do. This is just my regular conversation. I'm so interesting to talk to.
You are.
When you're listening to fiction books or reading them, do you feel like your empathy is like coming out? So if like you're listening to something that's very heavy or emotional, like, are you feeling those emotions with the characters, or are you just like passive, not affected?
So I have super high empathy, right? I cry at good commercials. You put a U.S. military person coming through a door in a gymnasium, and a teenager flipping out because they don't think they're home. I'm done. I'm out. You show me a good pet commercial where, the pets are getting what they need, or I am emotional. I am a relationship guy. Right. So I do get empathetic, regarding what I read, and how I'm feeling the points, and who's in it, who I relate to, who I don't relate to. I'll form those judgments pretty quickly in fiction, where I'm like, I don't like that person, right? I hope that person gets their comeuppance, or their right. So
Well, it's so interesting. I'm reading the book called The Women by Kristen Hanna right now, and it's actually about a woman who went to Vietnam. And it's a fiction book, but I tell you, it is so emotional. I have empathy at 13, and I do claim it. And I was listening to it earlier this morning, and before we got on to podcast today, I had to stop and listen to something else because I was feeling so sad and depressed. I was like, oh my God, I am not well. I am not okay. And, it's the same thing. So much relationship building themes. I listen to these books and I get sucked into this emotional world. It can be great. Like, listen, for those of you listening who are into fantasy romance, shadow daddies, I am there. And let me tell you, I also take on those emotions, and those are great. Love them.
Right. Oh, I love it. I love
that. Okay.
Yeah.
But sometimes, I just pick something a little bit different, and The Women is a little different. And it was a little like, I cannot me showing up to this podcast crying because this book is so sad and upsetting. So anyways.
I'll give you another example of that with
Yes,
you and
please do.
I. Right. So I turned you on to a podcast, a true crime podcast. Are we shouting out other podcasts in this? Yeah, right.
We have an abundance mindset. Okay.
We want everyone to be
the
happy,
merrier.
right? So you and I were talking podcasts and how sometimes we listen to true crime. And I turned you on to Dirty John.
Dirty John.
Yeah, Dirty. And I was like, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. If I do, it might be true crime because I find it fascinating the things people will do. Right. And if there is some truth to it, it's great. So I turned you on to Dirty John and I was like, there's going to be an episode about midway, a little more through, where you're just going to fall over and die.
Yeah.
Because I explained to you, I was at that same tea shop and I had it in my ears and I was riveted to it. And then it happened. And I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but it happened. The thing that I was thinking, and I had to go sit down. The tea shop workers were like bringing me tea. Are you okay? I'm like, shh, I just got it. I got to hear this. Right. And it just rocked me. Because of that empathetic reaction that you're asking about. And then I asked you about it. You went through it and I said, did you get to the thing? And you were like, oh, that? Yeah.
I know. That's funny. Because we had a different reaction. There was something else that happened in the podcast. I was like, this was crazy. And then you were like, what about that? I'm like, oh, yeah, that was crazy too. But I was more hung up on this other crazy thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, great podcast. I'm still going to recommend it. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally different genre than what we're doing here.
Yeah.
But there is nothing I love more than content about content.
Okay.
I will totally watch a TV show and then listen to a podcast where they're just talking about it. Do you think that's like communication? Do you think my high communication wants to also hear other people communicating? I don't know. I'm just obsessed. If something is great, I want to talk about it. I want to hear people talking about it. I want to read about it. Like, let's break it down.
So again, I'm a little older than you, right? We'll just say that. A movie came out just slightly. When I was a youngster, a movie came out and hit TVs that made everyone go berserk called Westworld. Right.
Yes, I have seen it.
Did you see the old one, the original? Right.
No.
See, there's my point. Right. Yul Brenner turning into a robot that just.
My time. This was an original.
Just so you're aware, and I think you know this, Westworld clearly came out as a whole new thing, right? Rachel Evan Wood, and also on HBO, and I had to watch it because I was still agonized and tormented by the original, so I tuned into it, and just like you asked, it started my deep dive into every Monday after the new Westworlds. I would log into either Variety or the New Yorker and read the episode recap.
Yeah.
Right? Because
you got to see, did you miss anything? There's a lot in those episodes.
So much in it, right? And I empathetically aiming myself in the right way, right? Did I read that situation correct? And I always do, because, I there's something I didn't quite get, or there's some reference and then they're making a guess about it. And I'm like, oh, I need to see if that actually happens. Right. Mm-hmm. I'm totally in. And this leads to, I know we're giving minor, very brief shout outs here. You asked about the fiction I read.
Yes.
I read a book called The Glass Hotel. It's done by an author named Emily St. John Mandel.
Okay.
And I read it because I was perusing somewhere and they said, this is a great summer read or something. And I kind of captivated by the little brief synopsis. And I was just riveted. I was like, oh, this is, and it's got a little science fiction-y in it, right? I told you I'm not a science fiction guy, but there is an element of a little science. There's no other way to explain some of what is happening in it, right? Without a little science fiction-y stuff. But it's not much. It's more a character study, personality thing, stuff like that. And I just absolutely loved the book. So a shout out to Emily St. John Mandel in the Glass Hotel. And then it turns out she had written, I think, Station 11 just before that, and then Sea of Tranquility just after it. So I backed up and I read, right? And then I read they all link. They all link in
I
subtle
love when they do
ways.
that. Yeah.
I had no idea any author ever did this. So for me, my connectedness is just, it's so, wait, I know where that story's coming from, right? And they don't all link, like the main story isn't, right?
Yep.
But there's segments of it where that character comes back in, and that's how this started. I have no idea how she's kept it all straight over all of the time, but I highly, highly recommend her as an author. It's the type of voice when I read, that's what I want in my head. So
Yeah.
just throwing it out there.
Well, you probably will never read these, but Sarah J. Maas, who is a huge author, she wrote the Throne of Glass series, A Court of Thorns and Roses, and Crescent City, which I have read all of these books, literally so many hours of my life.
Yes.
The end of Crescent City, toward the end of the second book, it links back to A Court of Thorns and Roses, and these are like separate series.
Yeah.
When this happened, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God.
You were
And
so in.
I was telling people, I'm like, there's nothing better as a book reader when these little connections happen.
Yeah.
Also, Abby Jimenez, we just read a book I'm in a book club. I'm the facilitator of the book club, of course. And
I'm stunned by this
Shocking.
revelation. Yes.
And her book, I think it was Just for the Summer. There are characters in it that are from her other books. And then I found out that she's always doing this. All of her characters are like overlapping. So now I need to go back and read a bunch of her other stuff because I love it. I love the connections.
I love it. And you mentioned that, they aren't even in the same series.
Yeah.
Sea of Tranquility and The Glass Hotel aren't
Yeah.
even remotely in the same time frame. Like,
Oh my God.
they are like hundreds and hundreds of years apart. And suddenly you're like, what?
Well,
what
that's what
Yeah.
the Crescent City book, it's like a different world. It's not
Yeah.
in the same universe.
Yeah. And suddenly it's in. And so
Love
let me ask you, because I was so intrigued by all this. Again, I didn't spend all of my time reading growing up. So I just assumed no other author has ever done this, and I have to dive into it and check it out. Do you ever reread a book?
Not really. I can't say that I have. I think I should because I really don't think I remember what has happened. But I don't know of any books that I've ever reread. Unless it's like a professional book, a professional development book. Those I'll go back and revisit certain chapters or certain things for work. But for fiction, for joy, no.
Interesting, because I'm the same way. I thinking once I've done it, I've got it. I'm in, right? But I was so intrigued by this and had some time on my hands. I reread The Glass Hotel, which was the very first one I read in her sequence, but it wasn't the very first one she wrote. And I just wanted to reread it just because I loved the way, the way her voice resonates in my ears when I read it. The words that she strings together really speak really well to me. So I want to experience that again. I want to try it. I picked up so much. I'm like, wow, darn it. Why am I not reading again more often? And I don't watch TV shows once I've watched them. And then I backed up and watched some of Breaking Bad. Again, unbelievable. I watched some of The Sopranos again and thought, oh my God, I missed, even though I know what's going to happen, I missed so much. And so I'm not a smart enough guy to think I should do that automatically. I had to learn it. So,
well, good thing you have Learner. And that's a great segue into our coaching for today.
Yeah.
Today, ladies and gentlemen, we have the privilege of coaching Mr. William Dipple. And he gets to be coached by me. Now, I'm going to go into this, Bill, coaching as I would. And so I don't mean to throw you off, but I start every brand new coaching session. If you were a person I had never met before, this is brand new strengths discovery. I ask all my clients, and I'm asking you, can you tell me your career story? And I do not want your resume highlights. I want the story behind it. I want you to start at the beginning and I want you to work your way through. Now, remember, we're on a podcast, so don't go on forever. You might have to condense it a little bit for the sake of time for our audience. But I want what happened. I want the how, the why, the feelings. Why did you go from this to this? So, can you share with us your career story?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we can bust this podcast up into several 1-hour segments, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Bill saying, well, this is going to take a minute. Hang on to your seats. We might have a two-parter.
Everybody strap in. Here it is, right? So born and raised Reno, Nevada. Loved it. Loved where I was born and raised by a family in the gaming industry, and had a really great upbringing. Although my mother was married 6 times, kind of a byproduct of the gaming industry, I had some pretty solid representation on the paternal side with my grandfather, who just loved and cherished me. So all of that came to me finally graduating through high school and then going, God, I hate this town, living in Reno, Nevada. Why would I live here? This is terrible. So I moved to Los Angeles, California, where my actual biological dad lived. Took on some jobs, stayed there about 5-6 years, learned to love Los Angeles. I know I talk to people all the time and they're like, oh, LA, why would you? And I'm that weird guy that's like the people, the weather. I know the traffic's bad, fine, whatever. But I mean, Los Angeles, if you really like the vibe, there's just no reason to not love the idea of it and what it is. So,
there's a reason why so many people live there.
Yeah. And you know what, we don't have to talk about taxation or what it is, or, whatever might turn you off about it nowadays. And some of the best friends I have on the planet are still living in Los Angeles from that time when I was there, and we're still all really close. So there's nothing I can take away from that experience, except I did realize I had to go to college and move back because my mother still lived here and had residency. So I came back to Reno, started at the local community college, and I think I did it primarily to meet girls. I wasn't really trying to up my educational world, but I started that and I thought, well, if I'm going to date the women I'm going to meet, and now remember I'm 6 years older because I lived in LA for about 6 years. So I better have some money. So I went to the job board. And for those of you in Sarah's age category, a job board at that time was literally a large cork board out in front of the office with
a
paper.
bulletin board.
Yes, paper on it that people had come and put on it, right? So and
tell us more stories.
Yes. Yes, and the wonderful, we'll be pointing out the things that Sarah's generation may not understand and helping them out.
I am a millennial, okay? We span.
Elder.
I'm an elder millennial. So I was
yes.
alive before computers were in everyone's home and before we had cell phones, okay? I know it all. This is why millennial is the best generation, Bill. We were alive with billboards and telephones that were hooked to your house, okay? I couldn't make long distance calls. I know both worlds, but continue.
I think the term "I know it all" speaks volumes as to the millennial in you. Yes. So I was looking at the job board and I saw, whatever, Arby's or Fry Cook and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, ugh. And then there's this job sitting in the middle of the board that said, it literally said clothing casual, hours flexible. And I went, that's my job. I don't even know what it is. Just take it off. So I pulled the job off, and it's to work for an arm of the university called Desert Research Institute. And basically I was a lab monkey. I was just pushing in samples on some laboratory equipment, and could the job worked late nights, or they'd be flexible about it. And I thought, well, this is just wonderful. So I went ahead and went and met them, and they hired me, and I started pushing samples into laboratory equipment. And that started what, I always thought, well, I'll just do this for a year or two. And then they said, well, we'll help pay for your school because we're an arm of the university. And I thought, well, then I'll do this while I'm in school and help them pay for it. And then they realized I had some competency in building things and doing stuff. And they said, can you travel and work with our air equipment? And I was like, yeah. So I became an air quality engineer, traveling around the world, literally going to Antarctica, Hawaii, Cairo, Egypt, most states in the union, working on air quality equipment to make sure it was doing the sampling that we needed when we came back. And then along came the birth of the internet, I guess just before Sarah was, knowing it all.
There?
I was there.
Of the internet?
Yes, I was there when they ran a fiber optic cable through our building, and we had to Viper a little thing on it to get connectivity. So,
and then it was like,
yep. All of that was going on, right? So, and we had one guy that was like, hey, I need some help doing this. You want to consider a position in IT? And I was like, yeah, I've been traveling a lot. I might as well. So I started IT, and then I went through my entire career, the rest of my career at Desert Research Institute for 30 years, working in the information technology. And got up to assistant vice president and CIO for a while, and made it to got to my 30 years, and then I'm in PERS, so I retired, and I thought, man, I really enjoy the coaching side, right? While I was at DRI, I went to an event and I got Clifton Strengthized, right? A huge event. My wife invited me to a doTERRA conference.
Yes. Oils, right?
Essential oils. Yeah. And I'm sure I'll go. And I went, and they had a Gallup presenter talking to just this massive crowd of people.
How do I get that gig?
That's a good gig.
That sounds like a great gig. If you are here hiring for the doTERRA conference or any other,
Sarah,
I'm available.
Sarah and I will co-talk to.
We'll MC your whole event and we'll present. Can you imagine? Sorry. Anyway.
And Sarah, by the way, they must have had. It was in the Salt Palace. They must have flown like 20 screens to handle it. I've never seen a sea of chairs this big. And it was the biggest. It's the most people I've seen in one spot, not at a sporting event in my life. It was just unbelievable. And so I was listening to it, and because I had a science background, particularly in the air quality and the IT worlds, the science he was presenting around why Clifton Strengths does what it does and what it means just really resonated with me. I was like, oh, man, that's really good. So I came back to DRI and I assessed myself, and then I had assessed one or two other people, and we kind of managed with it. And that was great. And then I retired or got retired from the university. You choose the nomenclature there. And as I moved on, I went to a really, really cool nonprofit that takes back opioids and dangerous medications off the street. And at one point they said, hey, can you take this assessment? And I went, you don't. Here, I'll just send it to you. Save the money, right? Oh, you know it. I'm like, know it. Yeah, I managed with it. The staff that I had when I was over there, and they're like, well, can you facilitate for all of us? It was a virtual company, and I was like, yeah, I'd love to. But honestly, I am not certified in it. I know it, but I'm not certified. And this nonprofit was insanely profitable, and they said, you're certified now. Go. So that started my Gallup world. Went and got fully certified, did the accelerated strengths coaching, came back, facilitated for this entire group as an embedded coach, loved it, realized I absolutely loved doing that, but the other stuff I was doing for the company, not so much, right? It was good. I was a director of supply chain and logistics. It was great, right? A great job. But, if you get up and your job is to find missing medication in the world, right? Or you can fly to one of our locations and coach 10 people on what they're doing really well. Yeah. See, your face says it all. For those of you listening and not on the video, I'll try to not reference the video, but Sarah was like, wait, you can do that? You can go to, right? So I thought, yeah, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. So I just started doing it on my own. Started with a company in Los Angeles, one of the friends I talked about early on, and went down there and coached. He had like 30 people, and we coached him and his entire company. We still do. They're a regular client of ours. And we realized after we did that, man, we can do this. So we called a business strategist on the drive home from Los Angeles and talked to her for like 2 hours about what it looks like and how we do it. And just started doing it about 3.5 years ago, started the coaching side. So I went from student looking to meet woman, right, to actually going to school and getting it paid for, to working as an air quality guy, to IT, to retirement, nonprofit, insanely profitable nonprofit, to I really want to do my own coaching and help other people be better at what they do. That's my story.
Thank you for sharing that story with us, Bill. I really do feel like stories are insanely powerful. And when we know the story of other people, we know so much about them. And I come from career coaching, so I love to hear like the planned happenstance. I talk to people about planned happenstance all the time. It's the idea that we can put things in place. We can't just sit on our couch and expect things to happen to us, but we go out. And even if the intention is different, I'm going to go to school to try to meet a girl, and now I just need a job, and how that formed a 30+ year career where you had so much success, and how that all bounced into where you are now. I think it's absolutely fascinating. So thank you for trusting me to share it with me and, literally everyone else as they're listening.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I should have probably culled a couple things out of that. But all right, go on. I'm listening, so I'm ready.
So let's move on to how your strengths connect to this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read your top 10 off.
Hit me.
Individualization, developer, activator, woo, restorative, empathy, harmony, connectedness, relator, and learner.
Yeah. So for people that are strengths enthusiasts, which is what we're aiming this podcast at, you may recognize many of those strengths. For those of you that don't, I think I'll touch on them a little bit while we break them down into how they affect and made me who I am around what I do for a living. So first and foremost, I've always resonated with individualization. It is not about me. It is that I see the world in very individual terms, right? I don't need to be a rugged individualist myself. As a matter of fact, with all of that relationship building in the top of those areas, it's tough for me to be a rugged individualist. I've got to go find some people to deal with. Somebody that I know super well and that I consider an amazingly brilliant coach and great friend told me, Woo needs to eat, right? They have to. And that's true for, I think, a lot of the relationship domains, right? You got to surround yourself with some people sometimes, make sure you're talking and getting that in. So I do see everyone as very, very unique. The individualization in me is just so strong that I'm always looking at the really, what is that niche thing? What's that little thing that I didn't see before? And it is true as well that high individualization people tend to really understand things about other people quickly before that person was really comfortable with letting that out, right? I'm strong intuition. Yeah. And even with that, just putting a couple of things together that, I didn't realize I actually let all of that out of the bag, right? I found a secret about Sarah out recently because she let a little itty bitty cat out of the bag. And then she was like, oh gosh, darn it. I did tell you. She dared me to find it. And then it took about 10 seconds. So I'm just saying that individualization has really helped me in a lot of ways. It's been great. But the one that has helped me the most is that number 2 for me, which is developer. Yeah. And high developer people, right? We just fuel on seeing other people get better by us helping them, by lifting them up or getting them the information. And when we can physically see or feel, because I have high empathy as well, we can see and feel the emotion and what it meant to them to get better at what we've helped them to do. That's it, right? That's for me, that's where individualization meets developer, because I get to pick it apart and see it in that really narrow way. And it just fuels me. I just absolutely live on it, right? I love it. I feel it. I know where it's at. My activator, number 3 for me, activator people tend to jump all over it, whatever it is. We don't always finish, right? Achiever people tend to check the boxes and mark that. But activator people were usually like, well, let's go. I'm on it. I'm ready. And that can lead to some issues, but that has helped me really get in and help deal with a lot of people, helped me open some doors, right, to activate on business and making sure that we move. That was part of the driving home and calling the business strategist, right? That's that activator. Hey, I'll jump all over this, right? And then, now we're in the shit, right? We're here. We just started it. What are we going to do with that? And then so many people will just tell me, you're all about the woo, right? Which stands for winning others over. In my world, it really stands for wife objects often, because I'm in a crowd of people and I'm like, wooing it up and making friends and finding out what they're doing on vacation. And my wife is like, no, we have another place to go, or we have this, or, I'm just need to focus on this one person because this is the person I really need to. And me, I'm like, God, it's good to meet you. How are you? And they're like, well, great, let's go have a drink. And my wife's like, no, I need, right. And so my wife's woo is number 34. It would be 36 if it could go that low. And not to say she doesn't have amazing ability to win people over. She just does it without woo. She does it in a very different way, which I think all of these terms are things that we would coach around a lot when we get through it. So as far as my work and what I've done in all of my life, right, I tell the story frequently. I was a pretty good IT person. There were times technically I was really good, especially on very niche, again, little parts of it. But I wasn't the best. Even then, I would surround myself with the best, right? Hire them or consult, have them brought in as consultants. And that's where the woo comes in. That's where the relationship building comes in, because now I can build that relationship and talk with them and make sure that they're hitting on all levels. And oh, hey, by the way, I want to throw you a wrench. My situation requires this. Oh, I've never seen that. Oh, really? Let's let you see it and let's let you get better at it. Right. And that's where that steps in. So that's kind of the longer version of, hey, I love where all these come together, right? Restorative for me, number 5, I'm a problem solver. I like to hit and solve and touch on and then reactivate and understand where they go and how they hit. So I really, really like those. And then my 6 through 10, empathy, harmony, connectedness, relator, learner, they're all really strong for me. You and I talked about harmony on a previous episode where we're never going to have a fight on the podcast, right? We have to be rowing in the same direction or we feel like we're not going anywhere. And for long time listeners of this podcast, I can say that, right? Long time listeners of this podcast, you'll hear that harmony is always kind of guiding us and moving us because we want to make sure we're hitting and understanding each other well, and we hope that plays out for you, and the connectedness, right? There's a reason you and I met. There's a reason we talked about doing a podcast. There's a reason we worked hard to get there. All of it came because this was supposed to happen, and then that was supposed to happen, and then that's my connectedness. So how it affects me, I really bonded and resonated after I took the assessment and realized, God, this is great. And then I got to spend the later career I had getting other people to do it, getting other people to bond. The word I hear all the time when I do this with clients is spooky. How spooky is this to read? And then we get to dive into it, right? So I really like lecturing in front of big crowds, right? I've done, like 500 group, right? Because the energy is so good. Someone's going to talk about it. You're going to get them talking about it. And then we deal with groups of 50 to 200 primarily in our coaching realm. We have 4 coaches on staff and we kind of rotate and talk about those. But we also do a lot of one-on-one, a lot of just C-suite, small, 10, 5, and getting them to resonate so much with what it means for them. And now we can communicate better. And wait a minute, you're also going to give me a tool that we're going to distribute among the directors and I can manage people better. I can have hard or easy conversations in a better way that'll move with them, and we can actually measure engagement. Wait a minute, I want to talk about. So how that's the portion where how everything I did and I resonated with now gets focused in a really positive way for the companies and the individuals we deal with.
Yeah. It's obviously so fun to talk to another strengths coach about their strengths, because the insight, right? You're doing this all the time with other people, but of course, then you look in the mirror. It's so fascinating to learn about ourselves. I would love to know more about, you have this strong base of relationship building, right? If we think of the 4 domains, there's executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. And everyone has 1 or 2 domains that they are led by, that their dominant strengths are in. You clearly have relationship building as your strongest. I'm curious, I want to hear you talk about empathy, harmony, individualization. Tell us, what does this look like in your work, whether in your past work when you were in leadership within an organization, or now as your work in the coaching world? How is it like? Because those are very relationship oriented, but I always tell people empathy to me is like a sixth sense. I think it's the most mysterious, magical strength that's out there because it's unexplainable. And I always tell people it's like someone has their chest cavity cracked open and they are just absorbing the thoughts and feelings of those around them, whether they want to or not. And they can just perceive what that is. So they can walk in a room and be like, oh, you haven't said a word to me, but I can tell something is wrong with you.
Yeah.
And that is powerful. That's why it's a strong relationship building theme. But it can also be a little dangerous because you're absorbing the thoughts and feelings of everyone. And if people are having a bad day, or if you're constantly in a negative environment, I can just see that take people down. So not only do you have a strong empathy, but then you've got that individualization. So that like intuitiveness about people, right? That connectedness of thinking about, oh, why are these things connected? And we're all in this together. So tell me, what does this manifest in you? Because typically if we see a lot of strengths like this together, they sort of ball up into a superpower.
Yeah, they absolutely do for me. And I would follow that up with, you mentioned the empathy might be heavy at certain times, or the relationship domains might be heavy, especially when somebody comes in the room and they aren't emoting, right? They aren't, hey, how are you? Right. Which is one of the reasons you and I work so much together, because we both have positivity. Right. And then when we get on, we're like, okay, well, we could talk about anything. We're going to have fun in an insurance seminar and people are going to love it. So we can do that. Right. But if I walk in and that isn't there, right, there are times in reading the room. And again, this is where the relationship themes come in, is the ability to read the room. Right. If I walk in and I'm picking up and relating that, hey, we don't trust what this process is, right? Which sometimes if you're leading a group, especially of successful C-suiters, they're like, hey, we've done other training. We've done this, we've done that, right? So if you're reading that and you're understanding that, now you can step into, I need to activate, right? I need to maybe have a hair of woo, but I need to pull it back because you don't want to look like a car salesman here.
Yes.
And what you do need to do is I need to ramp up all of my empathy, all of my connectedness, and say, okay, I need to know what failed for you. I never shy away from the other assessments you've done. What sat in the bottom of your drawer for 8 months and you did nothing with? I will always lead into talk about that one. Why did it hit with you? What worked with that Colby disc? Myers-Briggs, what hit, and why did it fail to the point where you didn't step into it? Because I want to fix that for you now. We're going to step into that more. So that ability from a relationship point of view to read the room is critical. On the other side of it, and you said, if they came in and they're heavy and we're not feeling it, right, that might bring us down. I'll give you another instance for that, and that is if I'm going to I come home and I've been working with people and I'm feeling, that pumps me up. So you might think, well, that's what he needs to get pumped up, is to be with people, and he needs to talk with Sarah and he needs to talk with people. And then he's go-go, right? high empathy people like me and most of the coaches that I've done realize the energy this takes. So if I come home and my wife is like, hey, we have a party of 10, 12 people tonight we said we'd go to, and I didn't see it on my calendar and I don't know, and I'm like, really? And you would think as a high relationship guy, well, great, I get to go meet a bunch of people, especially with high woo, right? But what it is with all that relationship built in, I know it's going to take a lot of energy for me to meet 12 people, right? And I'm going to want to meet them. So there's going to be some energy involved. And I don't know that I want to expend that energy. As a matter of fact, some people might say that extroverted label for me could be wasted sometimes, because I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to be in that group, right? I just want to watch TV tonight. I want to chill. I want to read my Emily St. John Mandel book, or I want to watch my good Netflix, right? We joked about Fleabag pre-show and how much I loved it, right? So there might be something I want to do instead of that. So the extroverted labels sometimes might be lost on me, but here's the thing. If I go to that meeting of 10 or 12, I have a blast. Right. I do get up. I feel it. It energizes me a bit. I get to meet some new great people. And then I'm just thankful that we talked about it and I ended up doing it. So I'd say in that way, how do they relate to that? It's the positive nature. And it's sometimes that bad side of I need to get out of it. I need to get it off of my sleeve for a couple minutes and think about activator. Yeah. I want to step into my activator and activate towards this. It means a lot to the person asking me to go. And it means a lot to some of the people, right? And then, of course, when I come in, if I'm reading the room again and they need a spark, I'm that spark, right? I'm like, hey, so what was everyone doing today? Where did we go, right? How did we get that? And usually that's a good spark. Sometimes it's a bad spark. Sometimes, they're like, oh gosh, why are we being led by that end of it? But more often than not, it's always hey man, thank God, let's liven this up. Let's pour a cocktail and talk about how that went, and how can we step into and talk deeper about certain things with my connectedness and empathy and developer. I'm all about deep, right? I'll go as deep as we can. We talked about earlier how emotional sometimes people get, and I had a client absolutely crying in our offices the other day. So, and you have to be prepared for that from a coach, because especially with high empathy, I'll cry too, right? I will mirror that emotion, and I can't help it. And that's okay. But I have to, as the coach that's guiding and facilitating, I have to lead us out of that. Right. Which again takes a lot of energy. So I'd say it has dynamic effects in both my life and particularly in my coaching world.
Yeah. You kind of addressed this, but I want to dig into it more for people who might be listening. You have woo and relator in your top 10. Now, there are no strengths that are opposites, right? We see all types of combinations in people's top 10.
Yeah.
But a lot of people will think that woo and relator are opposites. You're either a woo or you're a relator. Now, clearly you are showing us you can be both. Can you expand for people about what does that look like, right? That winning others over, but that wanting that deep connection with a person one-on-one. Give us a little bit of the insight to your mind of how that shows up.
Yeah. So, we joked in our last episode how bad of a client you were. Right. And I'm going to tell you how bad of a client I'm going to be, because when we coach, we're usually pointing out how relator and empathy are very different.
Okay.
I've never paired relator and woo as, hey, some people think they're opposite. Right. So for me, relators tend to understand emotion in other people, but they don't inherently feel it. And empathy people like me, that I'm going to feel it, right? It's going to affect me, but I don't always understand why I'm emoting the way I am. So it's really interesting from another coach's point of view that we compare how they look. And you're absolutely right. There are no opposites, right? And there's no right or wrong.
Nope.
But it is interesting to compare it with woo and relator. I'd say another hallmark, and the way it works for me, another hallmark for relators is the classic, if you burn a bridge with me, good luck, right? You are dead to me.
Yeah.
And I have empathy. So those play off of each other too, where sometimes I'm like, maybe I read that situation wrong. I don't want to, emotionally, I don't want to feel like I let somebody else down or I let myself down in the relationship. So I might give them another chance, but for relators as high as it is for me and some of the people around me, man, you cross that one bridge, you break that one trust, it's over, right? Until heaven and earth comes in. And you ask how those fit with woo and how they come in that woo relator. I've talked about this on a previous, not one of our shows, a different podcast I was in.
You were cheating on me?
I just only for a moment, but
Wow.
and by the way, Brandon's hair nowhere near as good as yours. nowhere.
Oh, don't worry, I've been with him too. No, I guess we just.
So you cheated on me? Oh, okay. No, I see.
Interestingly enough, I cheated on you with woo, and you cheated on me with relator.
Yes, with relationship. Actually, the whole domain.
Oh, it was the whole relationship
It was
domain?
the whole domain I cheated on you with.
Oh,
So,
wow. That's deep.
Just saying.
Wow.
So,
the
yeah.
betrayal.
Yeah, it was bad. But I pointed this out on Brandon's podcast, which is a great podcast.
Which we'll link. You can go listen to it.
Well, we'll link it in. We'll put it in. It's great.
Go listen to it.
We'll link both of them, the woo and the relationship domain. It's they were both really good. Again, I stole your line of woo needs to eat from your particular one. So really good.
Chomp.
When I was younger and prior to being really strengths aware, I spent a lot of time pushing people away from me. And I did this using my relator, my individualization, and my woo, right? I would woo it up to meet people, and then I would pick them apart. I would dice them with my individualization, right? So I'd be like, oh, there's that one thing about you I don't like. And then that would supercharge my relator to say, well, that's a bridge too far. You're gone.
Wow.
Right? It was a little nasty cycle I did. So I pushed hundreds of people away, particularly when I lived in Los Angeles, right? And that really came into play when I was around friends. So when I was hanging out with friends of mine and they said, oh, you have to meet so-and-so, right? He'd be great, or she'd be wonderful to hang out with while we're at this event. And I'm like, no, you're my friend. You and I are hanging out, right?
Oh.
And I would meet so-and-so and I would instantly find something I don't like. And I'm not good at at hiding my emotions. My heart's out there. And the minute I got it, I'm like, so you're blah, or Seinfeld reference. Your hands are big, right?
Yeah.
I don't, whatever. Great. And I wouldn't be great at pushing it away. And I probably pushed away just hundreds of people that would have been fantastic friends of mine. Now, interestingly, particularly the influencing domain people that I know in Los Angeles, they climbed that fence. They were willing to stick around and be like, no, we're going to stay friends. And eventually I would get to the point where I was like, oh yeah. Hey, actually, I do really like you, right? I got there. And like I said, they're some of my longest lasting, greatest relationships still. So I would say woo and relator to me work together in a positive way, right? Because I'm understanding the emotions of other people. And when I finally realized when I was burning a bridge and it was not fair, which I would say 95% of the time it wasn't fair that I was burning that bridge, my woo lets me get back in with it. Lets me step in, right? So I would say that counterbalance has been good. I don't normally pair those, so I'm really, really glad you asked that because that's a good pairing.
I think it's absolutely fascinating. I have never heard, and this makes sense that you're a coach, so you have so much insight on the strengths, someone explain the woo relator empathy sort of triage in the way that you did. And this is, I just want the audience to know, even if you share similar strengths with someone, which Bill and I have, 5 in common, 5 in common in the top 10.
Yeah.
They show up so differently. And I love, this is that individualization in me, hearing the stories of how they show up for people. And the nuance that you hear in that, how that woo for you attracts everyone and gets them in. But that it sounds like this relator and empathy is just an individualization you know, at least in the past was like cutting people out, finding out, okay, and then we're done.
Yeah.
It's so, the self-awareness that you have to recognize that, I think, is fascinating. And I think the nuance is so, this is why I love this assessment, because it allows for that nuance. Because in contrast, I have woo. I don't have relator or empathy in my top 10. I do have empathy and includer in my top 15, which I do claim, because unlike you, I don't cut people out. The idea of losing someone makes me want to die. Like, even there are probably 3 people that I think do not like me. And to this day, it still bothers me, even though I shouldn't like them. The things that happened, I didn't like them in the moment. We went our separate ways, and now I still think about it. It drives me crazy because I want to bring people together. I just had a 38th birthday, and I went to brunch with a bunch of friends. There was about 10 women there, and they were all just laughing because they're like, how do you know Sarah? How do you know Sarah? Because I just pull people from every area of life, like, come together, we're all here. And so I have a tendency to collect friends. I don't ever let anyone go, which is also hard to maintain, because those friends from college that I want to hold on to, I have to work super hard to hold on to them, because I just keep adding people to the pot. So if I don't want to lose anybody, I got to be really important, like really careful to hold their hand to be like, no, you stay here in the pot.
Right. Yeah. I mentioned this last time. I just had a 40th reunion, and a friend of mine drove in from Texas to attend the reunion. And he and I were great friends in high school, possibly best friends, hard, you know, but back then, for like, I can remember 40 years ago, but we always ran around. We were really, really tight. And he is so tight with so many of the students at the reunion. You know, they're all like, oh, you have to come. And you know, and me, I walk in and everyone's like, and you are, you know, like, and I'm 6'4", and I was 6'4" in high school, which made me either the second or the third tallest kid at school. Right. So you couldn't miss me.
You must have had a big school.
It's pretty big. Yeah. I'd say, I don't know, sub 1,000, but maybe 800. Yeah. Pretty big.
I had 110 kids in 7th through 12th grade at my school. So anyways.
Wow. So, and you know, I look at that friend of mine a little enviously, because everyone, you know, my woo gets a little stepped on.
Yeah,
you
of
know,
course.
Or my relationship, where I'm like, well, how come you don't remember me? And then I realize that, you know, he's putting in the energy. Mm-hmm. He's reaching out, he's talking, he's doing, you know, and they're responding, and then they're asking, and he's responding. And I don't even go to our Facebook page for our class reunion thing. So I don't, you know, I'm not putting the energy in. So you mentioned the self-awareness. I think the assessment is really good if you're coached on it correctly, or if you spend a lot of time understanding where it is and where it sits. It's incredibly helpful at allowing us to assess ourselves before we start looking and assessing at other people, because it radically changed how I started communicating with both friends and new friends, people that I want to get together. There are still people that burn a bridge.
Of course.
Right. And I still cut them out, you know, but I am far more even-handed about it nowadays. So,
yeah. Well, you know, our podcast is called Strengths on Fire.
Mm-hmm.
However, the working title was initially Dumpster Fire, because, you know, we really thought if we got together, it would be a dumpster fire. So instead of calling it Strengths Dumpster Fire, we now just have our Dumpster Fire segment. So tell me, of your strengths, Bill, which one or ones cause you the biggest dumpster fire?
It's a you know, we've really touched on this a bit. So the woo, right? I talked about the possibility of being a car salesman. Mm-hmm. I can come in and I can definitely be like, hey, tell me about your day. What are you doing? And people are like, I don't even know you. Why would I, you know? And I'm like, oh, sorry. Okay. You know, and then my relationship gets hurt, you know, and and then I bleed. Right. So, I would say from a dumpster fire point of view, sometimes I got to rein the woo in a little bit. You know, again, wife objects often, right? I got to make sure I'm happy at the house and things are working there. I would say one of the things I suffer from fairly frequently, and I'd say it's common for developer people is I tend to care a little bit more than the people I'm coaching.
Oh, tell us more.
So if I'm coaching someone and I really see a clear path forward, you're asking, how do I think about this component, right? Or how do I work with this? And now we're just, pulling back the veil for the people on the coaching side. Our job isn't to say, well, you need to, right? That's a consultant.
Right.
From the coaching side, it's, well, how would you, right, lean into, how might you do blah, right? And from a developer side, I'm often thinking, well, it's clear as day, right? You need to do that. And I'm thinking, I'm trying to lead you there. And they're like, well, I think I should do this. And you're like, absolutely. Perfect. I love it. And then we meet again in 2 weeks. Well, how was that? I didn't really try it. I didn't, I wasn't in. Or, even new clients, I didn't take the assessment. I'll do it in, and I'm like, come on. Right. The path forward is I care. And I constantly have to say, I care. I can't care more than my clients do. I just can't. And when I do, then what happens is inevitably I am going to get disappointed.
Yeah.
Right. It's going to hurt me. And then my relationship is going to feel it. And I'm going to probably suffer a little bit on the feelingy side, right? So I've got to stand off of that. I've got to activate again and woo and step into a couple other things. I got to individualize sometimes the thought process around, oh, that's a unique trait. Let that go, right? That one's unique. Step off of that, right? I have to Q-tip frequently. That's another acronym I coach around quite oftenly. Q-tip, quit taking it personally. Q-tip, right? So when when somebody's in that position and they're doing that, I'm coaching a individual client now, thinking about selling his business, and so we're working on a bunch of stuff with him, and he is busy. I mean, crazy busy. So much going on, and so he has to move appointments frequently. And I have to remind myself to Q-tip that, because look at everything that that is going on in his world.
Right.
So, there's the ball of sales, and there's the ball of keeping it going prior to the sales so that nobody goes, oh, we shouldn't do this. And there's the ball of the family that's like, what are we doing? Where are we going? And there's the ball of coaching, and there's the ball of go. He's a driver, so he's always got energy and activity and things. And as coaches, I have to ramp up what I think about from a relationship point of view, and be able to read not just the room, read the individual in this case, and step into it so I can be a more effective coach. It's always about developing other people. I tend to always come back to developer to be better at everything I try to do, whether it's with my friends or others. Developer can get me in trouble when I am overinvested, because then I get busted down, or my fellow coaches on my team will tell me, you can't care more than they. I hear it all the time. Stop caring more than they do. You can't at certain times, and it's fair. So
yeah, but that's hard too. I just want to validate that. Those are your talents, and it feels good when we lean into them. And so you come at it with good intention, and it doesn't always go the way you want it to, right? Like with the clients, you're trying to push them a certain way. And I tell people, my husband at one point said, you can't say this to people, because I'll tell people, I can't change you. I can't fix you. I can't change you. I can't do anything for you. My husband's like, why are you telling people that? I'm like, because as a coach, it's not my job to do anything for someone. I am a guide. I'm a mentor. They have to be the ones to do it. So, sometimes when we work with clients, they'll come and they'll say, you changed my life. You totally changed my career. I owe everything to you. And I'm always like, no. I mean, I love the compliment. Don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, I didn't do anything. It is your life. It is your prerogative. You were the one who made the changes. You were the one who put the time in. All I did was lend a listening ear offered ideas, was another person in your corner helping you along. But it is up to the client. And it's
Yeah.
hard when they don't want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're blowing a major opportunity there. I always say, yeah, absolutely. I changed your life. So sign up for more. No, totally. No,
Right. I
yeah.
need sales advice.
Yes. So no, it is always gratifying hearing from a group. One thing we do in our coaching practice, let's say we do a group of 30, we always at the very end of the day, the last thing we do is we ask them to give us one word, just one word. Right. So we go all the way around the room. So give me one word, informative, actionable, boring, whatever the word, just
Nobody
hit me with
ever
the word.
says
Right?
boring. Don't lie.
No one does. I've never heard the word boring. So that's good news. But we do get a lot of words, and all of them are I would say promoting in a really great way, because we want them to hear from their fellow people in the room what they took from this, right? And we're doing a lot of that during the coaching anyway. They're getting that too, because they're sharing what their strengths are and how we build. But we want to end on a word where everybody goes, yeah, I found that informative too. Or, educational, or
motivating.
We've heard life-changing and emotional, and you get all of these great words, and we write them down. Right. And then when we come again, we might bring them up again and talk about where those are at. So I completely agree with you. You have to, that developer again, I'm feeling so much better when I know you got better at what you're doing, because we had a plan and an action that you took that moved you forward. And even if you didn't do it, my developer needs to step aside and reiterate the plan, or give you another way to get to where it is, rather than Q-tipping it. Right.
Just a coach curiosity question here.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying all of this, it's making me think this developer, this woo, and this tendency maybe to, the dumpster fires that can happen of either cutting people out or wanting it more than they want. Does that make you like doing group stuff more than one-on-one stuff?
So when I first started doing my coaching business, I thought I was going to do primarily one-on-ones. I thought, because it really means a lot to me to get that feedback, right, and to move them in that way. But a couple of things in the first year of coaching really helped me understand that I'm probably better suited in the larger arena. And that was that very first one I did for the friend of mine living in Los Angeles, 30 to 40 people, having all of that energy to build off of. And then really kind of doing a one-on-one with a couple of the people and letting everyone else experience it was, we literally had someone in the first time we did this. Part of the question is, give me one word, one positive word other people would use to describe you. It's a common coaching question in the Gallup world.
Right.
And this person, when we got to her, said, I can't. I'm the heavy. I'm the person that, when somebody's misbehaving, I have to correct it. When the budget is wrong, I have to step in. When the, X and Y and Z. And I was like, I said, well, you know what? Let's phone a friend. Who can give me one positive word to describe this person? And someone stood up and said, the anchor, the person that we rely on. And then someone else stood up and said, honest as the day is long. I mean, if I go and they tell you this, that's, and then someone else said, actually super compassionate when I explain what the problems are, and this went on for like 10 minutes, and 5 minutes into it,
of course,
just crying. Like, I had no idea these people felt this way about me. And when you can talk about it from a strengths point of view and do it from a really good point of view, then that's where things really step in. So
yeah.
And
in that case, it is life-changing.
It is. It's completely life-changing. We always want to make sure that people feel good about what we're doing, but we also want to make sure that we're giving them direction that lets them build and get better at what they do. Mr.
Dipple, this was excellent.
Oh, I I like that I scratched the coaching itch for you today. That feels pretty good.
Is there anything else you would add for the audience?
I would say if you ever get the chance to work with the incredible Sarah Collins as your coach, I would highly recommend you do so. She is based out of Lincoln, Nebraska. I am based out of Reno, Nevada. Yeah, you can call me too. It's fine. But
I'll travel. If you need me to go
travel.
somewhere
I travel so much.
especially January through March, very available.
Especially the holidays. Get me out of here, please.
No, the holidays I
on.
need to be here. I have children. Okay, I'm not
That's
coming
true.
to you on the
That's
holidays.
true.
But
I get it.
in the slum of the winters.
Yes. So we're putting headers and footers on this. You'll get some information about how to contact us, reach out to us, email us, find us, right? And by all means, if you're interested in talking to us about coaching or moving forward, we would love to do the kind of stuff you're hearing us do today for you, your group, your individuals, or your entire organization. I think that would be the takeaway on this.
That is the takeaway. And this is just fun. Thank you for your time.
I love it.
I'm
love
so
it.
excited to be here with you doing this, talking strengths, talking stories, talking books, talking, cold bratwurst, whatever it is. I'm excited to be here doing it.
I think cold bratwurst was the last episode.
It was the last episode.
Oh my God.
But you know what? That's a callback. Okay. The real ones know.
We just Emily St. John Mandel'd our podcasts. You're going to have to listen to all of them to get all of the links.
Oh, there will be inside jokes. We're going to have to come up with a name for our fan base. I don't know what it's going to be. The Fireys? The Dumpsters?
Do we do Easter eggs and have gifts for people that find the Easter eggs in our podcast?
I'm nothing if not a Swiftie. Okay, let's bring on the Easter eggs. We'll name the fan base. Things are going to be happening here. There will be inside jokes. There will be. This is how you create a community, and I would like to create a community. And unlike Bill, I'm not going to kick anybody out.
See, and we talked, wow, painful. And we talked about our differences in age and where we live. I'm a Swiftie, right?
Okay, what's your favorite Taylor Swift song?
Oh, I love
I'll put
Taylor.
you on the spot.
No, that's not really fair because everything she does, right? Everything she does is just really good. I actually really liked her latest
Tortured Poets Department.
Well, I like Tortured Poets, but I was talking about the person she did it with, Malloy. Post Malone. Yes. Post Malone.
Fortnite.
And Fortnite, the acoustic version, I thought was just awesome. Just really good. So
interesting because Fortnite is one of my least favorite songs on the album.
Interesting. So, and there's some good stuff on it. I just liked their interplay. Yeah. But she is just about everything she does, right? I'm always pretty intrigued. I think she's amazing. So
I also think she's amazing.
So
we might have just divided half our audience. So if you're not a Swiftie, I promise this is not going to be like full of Swiftie content. Okay. But we, just appreciate a woman out here working.
I love it. And she's working it hard. So
that's right.
Maybe we can get her on the show and then our podcast will get a little crazy.
I think we'd have more luck getting Travis on the show since he's a podcaster and he's in KC, which is pretty close to me.
Well, actually Travis is can we just be honest with Travis and tell him that's our path to get to Taylor?
I think he hears that too much. I think we have to play it cool. I think we have to be like Travis
under the
I would love to have Jason and Travis. We could do their strengths and we could talk about it.
Wow, you're ready. You're on this. You're activator.
This is literally my favorite type of thing. Like, how can I just crawl my way in there?
Your activator just went off. I love every inch of this. All right. We got to, you know what? We've held people long enough. Let's let them go. Let's let them go. And we love doing this. Love doing it with you guys. Leave us some comments about whether or not you will eat cold bratwurst or cold brats or pickle relish.
Is it brat summer or brat summer? I might be brat summer. I might be a trend center. I don't know.
Wow. Leave us some comments on, I would say, Sarah's positivity and my woo. Too much, too little, just enough. Let us know. And I think we're going to respond to every single person that replies, correct?
Of course. And if I don't do it, I'll hire someone too.
Exactly. Where's Ann? Where's my assistant? Let me help with this.
Excuse me, Sarah.
Ann, help me. All right. Get out of here.
Okay,
I
bye,
will talk to you
friends.
soon. Goodbye. It was so good. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for joining us on Strengths on Fire. If today's conversation sparked something in you, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. We're here every other week, bringing you fresh insights to fuel your growth and ignite your potential. Remember, your strengths are powerful, so let's keep the fire burning.
And if you're looking to transform your organization through strengths-based strategies and coaching, reach out to Sarah Collins, founder of Collins Collective, or Bill Dipple, founder of Bill Dipple Strengths Coaching. Connect with Sarah at wearecollinsco.com. Follow her on Instagram at SarahCoachCollins, or email her at sarah@wearecollinsco.com, SARAH. You can reach Bill at BillDipple.com, Bill, DIPPEL.com, or on Instagram at Bill Dipple Coach, or email him at bill@BillDipple.com.
Please note the opinions, views, and interpretations of Clifton Strengths expressed in this podcast are solely those of the hosts and the guests. They have not been approved, sanctioned, or endorsed by Gallup in any way.
Until next time, keep your strengths on fire and let's light up what's possible together. Bye, Bill.
Bye, Sarah.